The dogs are barking. Maybe I just sit here for a minute and see if they stop. I think they've stopped. Good. Hi. Yeah, we're doing more stuff today. And that stuff is called an FAQ. And you might hear dog barking going on in the whole thing, but I don't have time to sit here and wait for them to stop barking today because I'm having to pre-film a number of things today for our trip, which is happening tomorrow. So there's that. And I still have to finish laundry and get packed. And I've got a rather big case of the stressies as a result. So we're just going to roll with all of that. And I'm going to tell you what we're making in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Today's one of those days. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 232 of 365 days of soap, and today we're doing a down and dirty, fast and easy FAQ. And that FAQ is actually around one very, very frequently asked question, and also a question that's been going around on the Facebook forums quite a bit lately too, and that question is called, does cold process soap sweat? And how to make it not sweat. And there are a lot of answers to that. There are actually answers as to whether or not cold process soap sweats that are wrong. So we're going to talk about that today, what sweating even means, what it actually is, and all the jazz in an FAQ. So let's get to the video so we can do that. Hello, welcome to a quick and dirty FAQ, and we are going to talk about cold process soap sweating. And this is a weirdly debated area of soap making because people up to and including the soap queen, not her specifically, but in comments coming from her team as recent as 2018, coming from literally her team in articles titled, soap sweating or whatever, someone from her team answered a question about cold process soap sweating, and they answered it to the tune of, cold process soap doesn't sweat. Yeah, that's not true. Here's the thing. All glycerin soap sweats, and all soaps containing glycerin have the potential to sweat. And while we may call melt and pour soaps glycerin soaps, right? The reason why we call them glycerin soaps is because typically a large amount of glycerin, in addition to like your alcohols and your esters and other things, are put into essentially a hot process recipe. So increasing the amount of glycerin that's in a soap for a number of reasons, but the biggest reason is the remeltability factor of it all. But all soaps contain glycerin, and glycerin is a humectant. And we actually talked about how glycerin forms in soap making when we were doing the cosmetic labeling guidelines, and I gave you a formulation for you to reasonably estimate the percentage of glycerin in every single batch of soap that you make, thus making it easier for you to label your soaps, because you then know where the glycerin, you get it. Anyway, so All soaps contain glycerin. Glycerin is a humectant. It attracts moisture, i.e. water, to itself. So first and foremost, no soaps actually sweat, because sweating is the process, the act of like moving things out of a thing, right? Moving liquid out of. So your soap is not losing glycerin, it's not losing moisture so much as it's actually pulling from. So the sweating is not actually sweating. It's dew that is forming on the tops and sides of your bars because of the humidity around it. And because cold process and hot process contains glycerin as a natural byproduct of saponification, yeah, cold process soaps absolutely do sweat. Granted, to that, I've never seen it until recently. And the reason why I've been seeing it recently is because we left the area, the shop that I've been working in for several years, that was very low in humidity and had a stable temperature in the shop year round, and moved into a soap shop that is very much a work in progress, right? We have a shop that gets very, very cold, like, 30-ish degrees at night. And I run a heater that is propane powered when I'm in here. And the humidity levels, therefore, are weird. I mean, I'm sure you've seen in my deep dives how much my walls sweat. You can literally see them just dripping behind. It's not the paint that's doing weird things. It's literally just the condensation in the room because of the soap shop being very, very cold and being heated kind of quickly via the propane heater. And it is causing a lot of humidity problems because of the absolute change in humidity. So as a result, my soaps, they start drawing that moisture from the air, essentially rather, acting as a dehumidifier, which is wild and weird. So yeah, cold process soaps definitely sweat. So anybody that tells you otherwise, it's not accurate. They do. As long as it's something that contains glycerin, yeah, it's going to do the thing for sure. And it has almost everything to do with humidity. Now, that is a melt and pour soap on the top there that's super sweating. But all of the rest of these bars, also, all of the bars that I've made several years ago and then brought into this new soap shop, were sweating like crazy. So yeah, cold process soap definitely sweats. Also, I had not seen such a thing up until, about 6 months ago or so. And it super does sweat. So what do you do about it? Well, that's another very big question on the interwebs, and one that has a lot of answers. And those answers vary from nothing. It's just an aesthetic thing, which is true. That's totally true. It is an aesthetic thing. It's also like a texture thing. You don't really want to touch slimy soaps. To, nothing. So wipe it off and then immediately wrap all of your soaps and it will be fine, which can work depending on what you're using to wrap your soaps ish. But the biggest thing that you really should do in fixing a problem with cold process soap sweating or any soap sweating, it's actually an indicator of a problem with the humidity in your environment. So really the best thing that you could do is get yourself a good dehumidifier. Now, since this started happening in my shop when we moved, see, that's not all freaking glycerin soap. That's mostly cold process soap. And the part that's not glycerin has got some sweaty marks on it. So the problem with the soap sweating and the humidity levels, we bought a dehumidifier. Well, actually, we have two running the soap shop right now. And I will put the link below, but the brand. It is a Sevon dehumidifier, Sevon, and it cost us 50 doll hairs for each of them. And you can actually actively see them working because they collect the water in this tray below, well, this kind of like carafe below, and you can see just how much moisture is being pulled from the air with this. And ever since doing this, I have not only not had any problems with my cold process soaps, but also I have not had any problems with my melt and pour soaps. Also, the reason why you need to tackle it on the humidity level as opposed to, just wrapping your soaps, or also people have also said things like, well, put less water in your recipe. I mean, the water doesn't actually have a whole lot to do with the amount of glycerin that is produced in a batch of soap. And by a whole lot to do, I mean virtually nothing to do with how much glycerin actually ends up existing in your soaps. So it's not the water content that's actually necessarily the problem, although soaps with a lower water content will get harder faster and therefore maybe develop a better, for lack of a better term, crust to possibly prevent this. But you still have issues with humidity. Whether or not your soaps are sweating, whether or not your cold process soaps are sweating with a reduced water content. If your melt and pour soaps are still sweating, that also means that every like bath bomb type product you have in the shop also is being well, in the case of bath bombs or shower bombs, anything that has the baking soda citric acid component wherein water is actually a factor for, the fizzy liftoff, those products are also being negatively impacted if your humidity levels are too messed up. So definitely get a dehumidifier if only for that reason. So if you've ever made a batch of bath bombs and they're fine and they're rock hard and you can drop them on the ground and they don't shatter, and a month later you come back to them and they're soft, or they're soft in spaces, that's a humidity thing. Those products are also sucking up the humidity in the air, again, acting as a dehumidifier. And the consequence of that for, again, a product that requires moisture for its fizzy liftoff, for it to, do its thing, its magic, well, it's doing it just in really teeny tiny small increments. And instead of it just completely fizzing and exploding or whatever and doing its awesomeness, it's ruining your product. It's making a product that you won't be able to ship because it will crumble in your hands. So definitely wrap those things right away. But also, best thing that you can do is invest in a dehumidifier. Keep it running all the time. If you find that you're in a super humid area and this particular dehumidifier, which I have loved and have had zero problems with since we got it, and all of my humidity problems have been corrected, also consider running a box fan as often as possible in the room. Granted, I hate running box fans, so if you don't like that, I get that. But if you're having real big issues with humidity problems or with soap sweating, what that actually means is it's a humidity problem. And so therefore, not just your soaps are being impacted, which is a harmless thing, the glycerin do on top of soaps for sure, but your other products, your bath bombs and whatnot, they are also being impacted, and that's not in a harmless way. So get your humidity levels under control in the area that you are working. And the easiest way to realistically do that and fix that and make that all better is, as I said before, investing in a reasonably cheap dehumidifier and stop ruining your products, really. But yeah, there's a down and dirty soap sweating. It's all about the humidity, baby. And there it is. Why does cold process sweat? Does cold process sweat? And why is it sweating? It's not sweating, as we discussed in the video, because sweating actually comes from the inside out. This is outside in. And so it's actually acting as a humectant, like glycerin soaps are wont to do. And because cold process soap contains glycerin, it can do it too. If your environment is very cold and very humid, you are definitely going to be running into issues with sweating with your cold process soaps. If your environment is very hot and humid, maybe that too. I've actually never experienced that. So if somebody in the comments could let me know if you experience it the reverse, please please let me know. That would be awesome. And as to the how to get rid of it, I mean, yeah, wrapping and doing the things, that doesn't actually stop the problem though. And the best way to actually take care of this would be to just get a dehumidifier and place it next to your cure rack. Mine is very small, very quiet, costs 50 bucks, and it's very, very effective. So I would definitely recommend going that route for sure. Also, from what I said in the video, keep in mind that if you're seeing sweating going on your bars of soap, be it melt and pour or cold process, that means that the other products in your shop are also experiencing that humidity problem too. And so while it might not be a problem for melt and pour and cold process, this is just an aesthetic thing for your bath bombs and whatnot. It's actually drying them out and making them fragile, and they're going to crumble. And also, at the end of all of that, not have a good fizzy liftoff because that chemical reaction is slowly happening because of the water in the air. So, best thing that you can do is really get your humidity levels in check in whatever area you're making your products in. That would be my suggestion. Yes. So there it is. All things sweating. I am actually on my way to Colorado right now, and I will not be sweating. I will be very, very cold. Actually, they'll still probably be sweating because if we ski, you work up a sweat. So that's fun. And that's what we will be doing for the next week or so, but we will still be continuing to drop videos. They'll still just be shorter, on the shorter end, and that's fine. Dogs are barking again. I appreciate you guys for joining me for another round of 365 days of soap. A big extra special thank you to all of my sudsers. You guys are amazing. You are epic. I really hope that we can do a live together while we're in Colorado, because that would be fun to get Mr. Webman in with the whole fun. So we'll see. All of this is now getting taken down and packed up. So it's another thing on my to-do list today. But I am out of here for today because I have to do all of that stuff. And I'll see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.